Mortgage rates are hovering near their lowest level since last fall, and this helps a little, but home prices are still pricey. At the center of this whole story is the very public clash between President Donald Trump, who is pushing for faster rate cuts, and the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, who is moving very cautiously. Today, I will show you what each side wants, what the data says, and how this could change your payment and timing to buy, sell, or refinance. Most of us all know who the president is, but a lot of us have no clue who Jerome Powell is or what the Fed actually does. So before we go into the drama, let's talk about what Jerome Powell's job is, because there is a lot of confusion about what the Fed actually controls. Powell is the chair of the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of the United States. Think of a central bank as the economy's thermostat and safety net. The Fed has two main goals, and this is known as a dual mandate. First is keeping inflation under control, and next is support maximum employment. Now, why does it exist though? Before the Fed, the United States had repeated banking panics, including a major one in 1907. Credit dried up, good businesses failed, and people lost savings. In 1913, Congress created the Federal Reserve so the country would have a lender of last resort and a steady hand on interest rates to smooth out booms and busts. Now, how is the Fed set up? Well, there is a board of governors in Washington, 7 members including a chair. There are 12 regional Federal Reserve banks like New York, Dallas, and San Francisco, and the FOMC, or Federal Open Market Committee, which votes on rate policy. That is the 7 governors plus 5 regional bank presidents. So what tools does it use? First, the federal funds rate target. The next is open market operations and a balance sheet it can grow or shrink. You also have interest on bank reserves. And there's even the discount window, which is a backup lending line for banks. Why does this all matter? The Fed reports to Congress, but it is not meant to follow day-to-day politics. That distance helps it make tough calls that protect your purchasing power over time, even when those choices are not popular in the short run. Here is where many people get mixed up. The Fed does not set mortgage rates. The Fed sets the federal funds rate, which is the overnight rate that banks charge each other. That rate influences bond markets, especially the 10-year Treasury yield, and mortgage rates tend to follow that. So when the Fed raises or lowers the federal funds rate, your mortgage rate does not change instantly. What does change is investor expectations. If investors believe the Fed is serious about controlling inflation, they buy more bonds, yields drop, and mortgage rates usually follow. Powell's current position is simple. Inflation is way down from the 2022 peak, near 9%. And is now closer to the high 2s. Housing inflation, which includes rent and an estimate of owner housing costs, is still sticky. Powell believes that cutting too quickly could heat demand before supply improves, which could push home prices higher even if payments fall a bit. Now, how do mortgage rates actually move? Think of the Fed as the conductor and the market as the orchestra. Mortgage rates mostly track the 10-year Treasury because investors are always repricing future growth and inflation. If markets expect cooling inflation or future Fed cuts, the 10-year yield often drifts lower and mortgage rates follow. If an inflation report runs hot, yields can jump and mortgage rates can rise the same day. Now, why is Powell so cautious? The Fed's target is about 2% inflation. We have made real progress, but the shelter category in the inflation reports is still elevated. If the Fed cuts quickly and demand outruns supply, home prices can rise again even while payments get a little better. Prices have also been sticky. The median existing home price in June of 2025 was roughly $435,000, which sets a new June record. So yes, rates dropped from last year's peaks, but prices did not. Affordability still feels tight because both sides of the equation matter. So let's dive back into this Trump versus Powell fight here. When it comes to Trump's argument for faster cuts, he looks at it as high borrowing costs are pricing families out. Cutting now would lower payments and help builders finance new projects. He has publicly criticized Powell and the Federal Reserve headquarters renovation during a housing crunch. Bottom line for the White House view, cheaper money today can boost buying and building. From Powell's perspective, the Fed is independent. It's not supposed to react to political pressure. Shelter inflation is sticky. Cutting too soon risks undoing the progress on prices. Monetary policy can heat or cool demand, but it cannot build homes. Without more supply, cheaper financing can pull more buyers into fewer listings. So how can a president still have influence without setting rates? The White House can shape expectations with public comments, and it can nominate Fed governors who are more open to easier policy. Those voices can shift the center of gravity over time, even if the chair does not change. Markets often move before the Fed does. If traders believe a 25 to 50 basis point cut is likely at the next meeting, they buy bonds now, which pushes yields lower and nudges mortgage rates down ahead of the vote. We have all seen rates slip on softer jobs data or cautious Fed comments, then jump after a hot inflation print. The lesson is simple. Headlines and expectations can move your rate day to day. Personally, I see three realistic paths here. Path A is gradual cuts. One or more 25 basis point moves over several meetings, mortgage rates trend toward the low to mid sixes. Affordability can still improve modestly and demand returns in waves, which would also keep prices firm unless inventory rises in a meaningful way. Path B, faster cuts under pressure. Quicker moves push rates toward the high fives sooner, payments can improve, demand will jump, but if listings do not rise as well, prices flare and some affordability gains fade. Markets can get choppy if investors think politics, not data, is driving the timing. In Path C, slower for longer, which means shelter inflation stays sticky. The Fed would end up waiting, mortgage rates would hover around the mid to upper sixes, and the lock-in effect continues and prices cool only at the margins. So what can you do now? If you're buying, the first thing is budget 3 payments for the same home. For example, run it at 6%, 6.5%, and 7% so you know the exact point where it works. The second thing is explore temporary buydowns and seller credits. Structure them carefully so you do not overpay. If you are near closing, consider a rate lock with a float down option. That lets you capture a dip without gambling. And the third thing, track local inventory every week. More listings matter as much as a small rate move. If you're a home seller, I recommend prepping and pricing to the market that you have, not the one you hope for. If rates dip and listings rise together, the best prepared homes still win. If you're locked into a 2 to 3% mortgage, model the total cost of moving. Include payment, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and the likely price difference in your target neighborhood. And if you're an investor, underwrite at multiple interest rate and exit cap scenarios. President Trump is focused on near-term relief. Lower payments and easier builder financing can help buyers and developers right now. Chair Powell is focused on stability. Do not reignite inflation, especially housing inflation, and remember that rate policy alone does not create homes. Both views speak to real parts of the problem from different angles. Watch the data, not the drama. Keep an eye on CPI, especially shelter, job reports, Treasury yields, and local inventory. When expectations turn, mortgage rates usually move first, but be ready before that happens. If this breakdown helped, hit the like and subscribe button. This is actually going to be episode 1 of what I'm thinking as a 2-part series regarding the Federal Reserve and how it's affecting the housing market. And if you want me to run some scenario breakdowns for you, keep in mind, me and my team are mortgage brokers that are working in over 46 states, so we can help you almost anywhere you might be located. And the last thing I want to leave you with is always the most important thing, and that's Jesus loves you and he paid the ultimate price for your life. So if you turn to him, trust in him, and believe in him, he has a beautiful plan and purpose for you. I'll see you in the next one.